And joining me now from Miami is Sylvan Adams, the founder of Israel Startup Nation. Welcome to the CJN Daily.
Thank you. A pleasure to be with you.
It's great to have you. Listen, you've just been involved in an operation, which is slowly the details are starting to come out. And I wonder if you could just take a step back and sort of walk us through the timeline of how this all started, because it's an incredible story.
So I was contacted by a journalist that I know that has interviewed me in the past, a cycling journalist, and she was in touch with a woman, an American woman, who had been a coach of the Afghan women's cycling team, and as a matter of fact, it was called the Bamiyan women's cycling team. I don't know if you remember the Buddhas from Bamiyan that the Taliban defaced. This was in the news quite a number of years ago.
Yes, of course, it was a cultural treasure, of course. And
right, prior to 9/11, and
right.
this is what they had done. So that's where Bamiyan is quite famous for that reason. And this journalist knew that I'm involved in some humanitarian works, and so she was inquiring whether I had any kind of contacts or could be helpful in any way in terms of helping to get these Afghan women cyclists out of the country because of the rampage of the Taliban and the impending doom that everyone was foreseeing at that point. And of course, these poor women are terrified. I mean, they're facing their worst nightmare. So I started using my contacts, and I do have some contacts, and I came across the most wonderful Israeli NGO by the name of IsraAid, headed by a fantastic guy, Yotam Polizer, and they have so much capability and they have so much Jewish heart. They had boots on the ground. They had logistics in Afghanistan to help out with this cause. So I said to Yotam from the beginning, I said, listen, this is the group of women that we're targeting. Obviously, we can't save everybody. It's a terribly tragic story to be able to basically cherry pick, a few lucky women. And I did so because of my connections to cycling. And it goes a little deeper, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But so we got Yotam on the case. I brought Shannon in. We made lists of these women, and Yotam put his people to work. He has operatives on the ground in Afghanistan, Afghanis, who are working surreptitiously, and really they get the job done in a most remarkable way. And I said to Yotam, no matter what it costs, let's do what I've got this covered, and let's make it happen. So initially, before this all started before the U.S. had pulled out, before the U.S. deadline of August the 31st, maybe a week or 9 days prior to the deadline. So we brought all the women to the airport, and we had them on a flight to Germany. We had them reserved to go to Germany because they needed to go to a transit country, and then what we needed was a comfort letter from Canada, because Canada, the Liberal government has pledged to accept 20,000 Afghan refugees. And I mean, there's no group that's more needy than a group of women cyclists, where in Afghanistan, at best, you are persecuted for riding your bike, and at worst, literally killed for simply riding your bicycle. So of course they qualify as refugees, and we started to work firstly with the PMO, and then with Minister Mendocino's office. And by the time they got us the comfort letter, and I guess it had to be vetted by lawyers, and you know how these things go, and everybody was working in good faith. But by the time we finally got the letter, and it was a perfect letter, the Germans weren't flying anymore. They closed down their operation, and Canada had closed its operation. And we decided to embark on a plan B, which was to travel to the border of Tajikistan and literally walk across the border to the neighboring country. So we had a problem because this now fell a day or two after the August 31st deadline. And there was a long lineup of people at the border, and we had trouble prioritizing who was going to be able to get through. And this is where another piece of good fortune emerged, which is I know a gentleman who just retired as CEO of the world's largest mining company. And he told me that he had just built a smelter in Tajikistan, and he knew the president personally. So literally, our girls were at the border with Taliban guns trained at their heads. And I'm not exaggerating. When a phone call goes to the president of Tajikistan, this is really cloak and dagger stuff. And they were permitted entry into Tajikistan. Thereafter, our new Abraham Accord partners who had heard about this mission, they generously offered to be a hosting country while our Afghan women complete their paperwork to be accepted as refugees in Canada.
So was this operation given a name?
It wasn't given a name because things just came together so quickly. But we could since we can give it a name. It's always good to label something because it will remain in people's minds more easily. So I'll think about that. Operation Save the Afghan Cyclists.
What would have happened, do you think, if the Taliban had discovered that Israel and Jews were involved in this?
I dread to think. I don't want to answer your question. I dread to think what could have happened. Like I said, even when they were, when we were bringing them across, at one point they pulled their weapons on these girls, and we were, I got an urgent call from Yotam to tell me, listen, get your friend on the phone right now with the president of Tajikistan, because I'm not sure we have very, very much more time. And to his credit, he did it immediately, and literally they were permitted to walk across the border.
What is the situation? How is CJN and Canadian law firms and any other like OMETs and things like that? How are they all involved in this process? What did you do?
So they were helpful. I reached out to all my Canadian contacts, all my Israeli contacts. They were helpful in terms of getting to the Trudeau administration and getting to Minister Mendocino's office. They worked with them. So they were good in terms of getting the necessary and helping us with the logistics of applying for refugee status. So again, they were part of the team. There were many moving parts and a lot of people that ultimately got involved, including as I said, our Emirati friends that offered to host them. So listen, I'm really grateful to how much people care and how much effort went into saving these women. We practice the ancient Jewish imperative of tikkun olam, and it's a cultural thing about our people, and of which I'm very proud.
Would you have a comment on the length of time that this took? And Canada's been coming under a lot of criticism for the way it had stopped and left and closed down the embassy and left a lot of Canadians and others stranded. What are your thoughts on this? And that you had to end up doing this out of your own pocket?
Well, look, it all starts with the United States. I think it's a shock to leave a country that you invade 20 years ago, and to leave a country as rapidly and without any kind of logic to the way they did it. First of all, why were we at Kabul airport instead of Bagram Air Base? That was the most secure place in Afghanistan. What kind of military minds decided we're going to close Bagram Air Base, and then we're going to ask the Taliban permission for flights to get out of Kabul, so that they won't shoot us down? So, I think the thing was terribly badly handled, and I don't single out Canada. Canada is a minor power in all of this. And we were accessory to the calamity that took place because of how the U.S. left. You know, there's a principle when you go into a store, you break it, you own it. So for me, that's the story of Afghanistan. The U.S. went in there, and you know, Biden says we never expected the army to cut and run. You know, as soon as we left. But of course, they had all these people on their payroll. They were paying the soldiers to come. And in Afghanistan, a poor country, to have a job, they weren't real soldiers. They were people with a job and a paycheck. So as soon as they saw the U.S. pulling out, they lost their nerve and they went home. They packed it up and went home. So I mean, I think books are going to be written about this terrible embarrassment. I mean, like books were written about Vietnam. This is another Vietnam type of story, leaving Saigon, you know, and when people are literally holding on to the wings of planes and falling to their death because they you know, I mean, they don't want to be left behind. I mean, you know, what can I say? So I'm not singling out Canada. I'm not sure that would be a fair criticism. Canada left the military effort many years ago. I hope we could talk about that, whether that was a nice thing to do to our allies, to talk up, you know, the Western alliance and then pull out when it no longer suits us. But again, I think Canada and all the other Western countries really fell victim to an American decision, and the manner in which the Americans pulled out, which I think is really an unacceptable thing.
Muted, sorry. Have you met or talked to any of these women, or are you going to meet them at all?
So
Or men, I mean, not just women, but the whole group?
I had considered flying to Dubai to meet them, just to see the joy on their faces. And I decided I wasn't going to just, you know, go there for a photo op. So yeah, I hope to have an opportunity to meet them. Maybe we'll recruit some one day for an Israel Startup Nation female professional team. So yeah, I hope that they have opportunities in life that are created by this you know, resettlement, and that they never look back. And you know, but there were some tragic stories. I had a testimonial from one of them who said, you know, her husband, she looked so young. I mean, she looked like a young teenager. But she said, you know, I'm married and I'm really, really worried about my husband. He's still stuck in Afghanistan. So this story isn't over. And there's going to be a lot more heartbreak along the way, I think, for the families and for many other people, of course, for millions of Afghans. And mostly women, of course. Women are facing the brunt of it much worse because of the absolute misogyny that Taliban society practices. But how good can it be for the men when they're being hunted as well? You know, and if you had something to do with the Canadian Army or with the American Army, they hunt you down and may shoot you like a dog in the street. You know, I mean, it's a terrible story.
You're like a bloody Schindler, what you did. So
oh, listen, now you're going to make me cry. So I'm blessed. Honestly, I'm truly blessed to be able to do these kinds of things. And I don't intend to stop, that's for sure. I intend to use all of my blessings and try to do a little bit of good and practice tikkun olam in the purest way.
Thank you so much for sharing this incredible story. It will be a movie for sure. And
it'll certainly make for a good movie. That's for sure. Even just a straight up documentary, just telling the story exactly as it is without any Hollywood drama, I think would make for a very, very exciting tale.